guys, welcome back to Room 237, back with another review. And this one's kind of random because this was a random buy. I picked this up the other day when I picked up Taking of Deborah Logan and a few other ones. I saw the title, I read the back, and it seemed very interesting, so I decided to check it out. I knew nothing about this film. I had never heard of it. I saw it was released by Severin. Read some of the notes on the back and some of the short quoted reviews. I was like, well, alright, let's give this a try. And this is part of the Oz-sploitation movement, which was just exploitation films released from Australia, which I haven't seen too many of those, actually. I mean, I've seen Patrick, which is Australian, even though Patrick still lives, is Italian. Of course, Wolf Creek, which isn't Ozploitation, it's just an Australian film. I've seen a couple, but I think I've only reviewed Wolf Creek. But this is a very, very well done, stylish. I wouldn't call it like fully Giallo inspired. It has some narrative and stylistic influences from Giallo, but I wouldn't go as far as saying it's, similar to the works of the Onetti brothers or, the married couple that did Amer and Strange Color Your Body's Tears. But it's 1982's Next of Kin. And yeah, this is the Severin release. The back says 1989. I don't know if that's just when it was first released in America, but it's a 1982 film. And it was directed by Tony Williams, who he is heavily influenced by the Italian director that did the film 1900, and there's one other film he did that I read that Williams was very influenced by. And you can see the Italian influence in this film. I was surprised, however, to see it wasn't featured in Troy Howarth's So Deadly, So Perverse Volume 3, which is all Giallo-influenced non-Giallos from all around the world outside Italy. I mean, it has movies like 10 to Midnight, Cruising with Al Pacino, Halloween, but it did have this, so I was actually pretty surprised. It was written by... It's not going to tell me on that. Anyway. So written by Tony Williams and Michael Heath. I love how the original poster, which you see in the thumbnail, it looks like an 80s psychological, like, thriller paperback or like a dark romance novel paperback. The music was done by Klaus Schultze, and I want to see what else this guy has done, because he's done a lot of work, but it's not giving me his filmography. No, I wanted his filmography, but this guy... the music is one of the best parts of this film. It's absolutely phenomenal. And the cinematography was done by Gary Hansen. Now it stars Jackie Caron, John Jarrett, Gerda Nicholson, and Alex Scott. Now Alex Scott looked familiar. He was also in... I know I've seen him in other things. Abominable Dr. Phibes, Twins of Evil. He was Martin in a Romper Stomper. He was the touchy stepdad. So yes, I have seen him in other things. Now John Jarrett, on the other hand, he was the killer in Wolf Creek, both 1 and 2. This is a very young, early appearance by him. And he's actually a good guy. He's the lead's boyfriend, I guess. Now, it all takes place in this Victorian mansion that's been turned into like a retirement home. Uh, Jackie Karen plays Linda, who's estranged from her mother who recently passed away. She inherits the estate, and she goes back to live there and starts taking care of some of the residents, even though she ponders selling it. And the same night that she arrives, there's this new resident named Miss Ryan, who's dropped off by her nephew. And then these mysterious deaths start occurring. Uh, some residents are drowned, and she starts looking into her mother's diaries and realizes that there's a precedent of a series of deaths from like 16 years ago that all seem very suspicious. This death seems very suspicious, but also some personal things within her life that coincide with that period that seem weird that she never picked up on before. And she starts having dreams and flashbacks to that period of her life. And it's super well done, very stylish. I mean, I saw bits of De Palma, Hitchcock, Kubrick, all seemed present in some of the filmmaking style. The music goes from mostly being this very dark, ominous, kind of droning sound. Some of the scenes reminded me of like Clockwork Orange, when Georgie and Dim are beating Alex while holding his head underwater. Like every time they hit him, there's like that echoey, dissonant, like how the sound just kind of carries, and kind of like that, but more subtle. It goes from that to like a very goblin-esque type sound, like when she's reading her mother's diaries. It does have a good twist, a twist that I didn't see coming. Excuse me. Looking back, I'm like, oh, okay, that's kind of an obvious twist. But I was thinking about how, it's not really done through misdirect or story manipulation. It makes sense. It is rather slow paced. I can see why some people might not like it. I mean, the pacing and its setting has been compared to The Shining, which I can see. Now, the back, someone from Scary Minds said that this is a giallo that rivals Argento's Deep Red. Which, one, it's not a giallo. It's heavily influenced by giallo. That I can say. But as far as a movie that could rival Deep Red, sure, absolutely. But a giallo that could, I mean, whether you like Deep Red or not, even if you think it's overrated, it is one of the most important gialli ever made, and that's objective. But no, as a movie, I could say it's as, if not more, effective than Deep Red. That I could say. And another thing that really sold me on it was this quote. A horror movie unlike any other. Quentin Tarantino. So, just those quotes alone being put out by Severin, and just having this really sort of artsy yet independent, obscure look to it, I was totally sold. And I was kind of wondering where it was going at first, because this movie really takes its time with its build-up. Like, it's kind of short, too. It's only 89 minutes. So, like, the first hour plus is all build-up. You get the one death, at first, the one resident that's found in the bathtub, drowned, which is very well done. How he's found and then what they do with him it's shot beautifully. He looks like a dead body. I mean, this one resident goes to get in the bath. We follow his foot, go up, and then step into the bath. It steps on the guy's head by accident. And it's like that milky, warm water. and he's just laying at the bottom of the tub, and then the next scene is this overhead shot where they lift him out of it, so you just see the water come off of him, and he is gray, white, blue around the eyes and mouth. He looks dead. And that's when you have just that just ominous, ambient, dark, just droney score that kind of has that Clockwork Orange touch to it that I mentioned. Beautifully done. And then there's just little scares put throughout. Like at one point, she's looking around. She goes in the room where the body's kept. He's in there for a few days. The power goes out. She's just kind of walking around, and we see her POV with the flashlight. And the guy's laying there. The blanket's down, and his head's turned, eyes open, mouth open, as if he's staring at her. And there's no music. Like the flashlight just pans over him. You just see him like that. That's really creepy. They don't do a scare with it, which I was surprised. Instead, there's an elderly female resident that comes up behind her. So when she turns around with the light, it hits her and her. She's just kind of staring at her. That's kind of a jump scare, but it's deserved. The jump scares in this are very subtle. This is the perfect product of something I've preached since I started this channel, where less is more. Subtlety is scarier. I mean, it never gets bombastic or wild. It doesn't have the loud Blumhouse jump scares. It does have jump scares, but they're more mild yet more effective. This is how you do it. John Jarrett of Wolf Creek plays her, I guess, boyfriend, like an old flame that she's trying to rekindle. I guess there's this other woman that he's kind of hanging out with, but that actually leads to something as well. I'm not sure how much of this to give away before I get to spoilers, because I will be putting spoilers in this like I did for all the other Jolly, because it is a mystery. I don't think this is a movie that too many people have seen, but also just some of the stylistic choices, like these recurring dreams she has, will show like the shot of this corridor that is just like the camera's not moving, but it looks like the hallway's extending. There's like a dead end with the door, and it doesn't look overly done with like optical effects. Oddly enough, it looks kind of natural. Very well done. Which she has the dream of the guy that drowned, like he's outside her window, kind of floating, like outside's water, and he's knocking on the window, kind of like Salem's Lot. Also, she sees herself at 4 years old with the red ball. Shows more and more of that scene, like walking down the hallway, turning to go in a room, and eventually you see what she does when she goes in the room. There's a lot of slow motion in this, but it's very different. It's not like a slow motion that I've seen before. It almost looks like when you pause it and try to skip forward, how it's just that kind of jolty, kind of jumpy look. Obviously a lot faster, but like they do it when they lift the dead guy out of the bathtub. It's throughout several scenes in this. I like how the slow motion is done. And then after the reveal of what's happening, the way she runs out of the house, the shots in that, like the tracking shots or the overhead shots, the way she goes down the stairs with the music, beautifully, beautifully done. Now, at first it's like, is there something evil in the house? Is it someone that lives there? Is there a conspiracy? She starts to believe that it's the sort of resident doctor, played by Alex Scott, that maybe he's doing some shady work, along with this woman Connie that's worked there forever. she starts to put the pieces together herself through just some old paperwork and files and her mother's diaries. Her mother's diaries reads of hearing someone walking around and sensing that someone's evil. The guy that found the dead guy in the tub, he had a stroke upon sight. And they don't focus on him too much, but they did do a good job at making him look like he had a stroke, like half his mouth is stuck. It does kind of show that there is this figure watching her from afar at several points. I guess I'll get into spoilers here, but yeah, I can see people having issues with the pacing, but when it gets to that last 20 minutes or so, 10, 15, 20 minutes, it is worth it. I mean, it is very well done. Also, there's another scene where she hears some noise, so she goes to check it out, and she's in a bathroom where the sink in the shower is just running and overflowing. Slowly rips the curtain open, and there's no one there. So it kind of has this aura of, could it be a haunted house? That I think that dies out very quickly. And it is more of, is there a killer amongst us? Is there a conspiracy going on, like with the doctor or someone? Are we going to find out something about the lead character herself? It is a good mystery. It is very well focused. The twist doesn't seem obvious, but when you look back, it does make sense. And I thought the acting across the board was well done. The most praise I give it goes to the cinematography, how it's shot, its stylistic choices, and its score. It works so well together. It's also not an effects film, but like the way they made the dead bodies look dead with that slow motion and the music, I mean, it is unlike anything else, really. And I was very, very impressed by this. And if you are a Giallo fan, definitely check it out. Or if you like checking out films from other countries just to see sort of how they do horror, head over to Australia and check this out. I was very impressed. I loved it. As far as films influenced or inspired by Giallo without being a legit Giallo, this might be one of the best, really. Uh, its stylistic choices feels very original to the film or to the director. Doesn't really feel like he's ripping off anybody or trying to make it look like certain scenes from Giallo. Just, I can't praise this movie enough. So, with that said, highly recommend it. I'm going to get to spoilers now, so. So at one point she looks into her Aunt Rita, who she was told that she died, but when she goes to ask the guy Lance, who had the stroke, she asks, how did my Aunt Rita die? And he has her get close and says she didn't die. But when she goes to ask Dr. Barton, played by Alex Scott, he just tries blowing it off like, oh, yeah, why does it matter? Why do you want me to tell you? It doesn't matter. Oh, no, she didn't die here. She died in psychiatric help. And then by this point, she's already delved into the diaries and, found all the correlations between the deaths that happened then and what's going on now, or what's starting to go on. Finds all these death certificates signed off by Barton from that time period. Also overhears Barton and Connie talking, with Barton saying like, oh, she caught me lying to her. I think she's on to what's going on. And I don't remember if they die or not, but the movie really focuses on either Barton and Connie, or at least just Barton. But that's when we get the reveal of, she tries to get Lance out of the house because all the other residents have been taken on some field trip. So it's really just Connie, Barton, Linda, and Lance. She tries to send him out the fire escape, and that's when she hears a noise in the room. And when she looks, it's Miss Ryan, the resident that showed up in the beginning the same night she did. And that's when she tells her, like, I lived here too once for 20 years, but they got rid of me. They wasted my life. She takes her wig off. It is revealed to be her Aunt Rita. And, she says that, yeah, all those deaths did occur. Your mother was the one that got me sent away to psychiatric help, or to get psychiatric help. Barton signed off on it. But your mother's the crazy one. Your mother's the one that committed the murders that I essentially got pinned for. It got sent away to psychiatric help for 20 years. Which, the timeline doesn't really add up, because it was saying 1966 and this is 82. It could take place in 86, but... And then that's when her nephew comes in, who we find out is actually her son and Linda's brother. They try to kill her. It's kind of creepy how Junior, like, he's doing this thing where he's, like, kind of almost in, like, a sumo wrestler position with the mini sledgehammer. He keeps hitting it on the floor, and he's kind of, like, looking at her. And, yeah, he does hold her down, kind of get touchy. But she kicks him in the balls, hides in the bathroom, and I thought this scene was kind of creepy because Rita's banging on the door and it gets quiet. You just hear her say, I see you, followed by like a chuckle, and the camera just pans down to the keyhole and shows her eyes in it. So she grabs a comb and stabs it. And then this is when it just gets intense. Oh, because also before that, she goes to get Barney's help. Barney's at some firefighter event. So she does escape from Barton and Connie somehow. Drives away to get Barney, John Jarrett. They come back, and there's this cool scene where we see a fountain with like a stream of clear water, but then it slowly turns red. And we see that other woman Barney was hanging out with her throat slit in the fountain, which was hinted at earlier in the film because her red beret was found in the fountain. And Linda's looking out the window. It looks like her convertible is out there. But if you look, it kind of looks like she's like slumped over and someone else drives off. So it's kind of hinted at that she was already killed. And then they get inside the house. And I thought this was the idea was kind of silly, but it was done very cinematically. Barney walks off. She stays in like the foyer. And then Barney's in a wheelchair just coming out super fast. Hits the corner of the stairs and just flies out of the wheelchair. And I mean, it's like shot from below looking up. And we see him kind of like fly at her, like land on her. He's all bloody. So Barney's killed. And then that's when she hides upstairs and Miss Ryan reveals herself and all that. That happens. Hides in the bathroom, stabs her in the eye. And when she comes out of the bathroom, that's when there's just like this. It's not like she's running towards the camera, but like for the bathroom door, she's running towards the camera, but it's like a backup shot. And this is when the score is even louder, dronier, and just like great sound. She gets out in the hallway. There's this overhead shot of her just running arms out through the corridor. Very Psycho-esque. Again, this is all in like that jolty, jittery, slow motion. Runs down the stairs, and then makes her way to this diner that we see in the beginning of the film, because actually the beginning of the film does that thing a lot of Blumhouse films do, where it begins at like the final scene and then we cut back and work our way up. Only it doesn't give away anything. We just see her kind of dirty and bloody walk up to the car, put her head down, and then it doesn't say like 3 days earlier. It just jumps and tells us. But she makes her way to this diner. She barricades herself in it with this young kid that works there. They're sitting there. And then Junior's van just barrels right through the building. They shoot at it with the kid's shotgun. I think his dad runs it, so they get his shotgun. A light comes down with like a sparking wire. It even shows it up close, but they don't really do anything with it. Shoot the side, all the gas is pissing out of it, and then she just comes up right to the windshield, and from behind we see her blow his head off. And then they leave. We pick up with the opening shot of them getting in the truck. They drive off, and that's the end of the movie. It ends with, the diner. It kind of looks like the shot from the ending of Chainsaw Massacre, where it's like the road, houses in the background, and they just kind of drive off, watching it explode. I mean, like Apocalypse Now explosion. I absolutely loved the stylistic choice of this film, or like the different tracking shots, slow motion. I thought everything worked. And so yeah, it doesn't feel like misdirect or a manipulation, because normally in Giallo they'll show you the characters that will be the killers in the beginning, but then they won't really show them. Like, I think we see Miss Ryan and her nephew one other brief time from like a distance, and then it heavily focuses on, with evidence, with narrative proof that it could be these other characters, and it focuses on them to really get you focused on them. Excuse me. So yeah, I wouldn't really call it a misdirect, because it makes sense. It makes sense why you would think Barton, because everything is pointing to him. And it's also not random or anything, because you think back to the opening, it's like, oh yeah, they came in the same day. She doesn't know who they are. The movie didn't really focus on them, so I wasn't really thinking about them. So, plenty of Giallo, plenty of mystery films do that. I thought it worked. But also the setting, I love Victorian settings, whether it be in the Victorian era or modern day, just in an old Victorian setting. I thought the setting worked wonderfully, especially since it's out in the country. Also, like when she's making her way to the diner after stabbing Rita in the eye, and she slow motion runs out of the house, we see her running across, we see her running across the screen on the street. It's just like barren field, and it's like dusk, so it's like gold on the horizon line, but like dark clouds on top. She's kind of in a silhouette. Looks gorgeous. It looks great. Love the look of this film. Again, the acting was all well done. It was great seeing John Jarrett in a young role. The story, I thought, made perfect sense. It was a good mystery with a good payoff. But oh yeah, that's that scene for when it looks like Salem's Lot from one of her dreams. I thought the dreams looked very dreamy, stylish, different. The dead bodies look like dead bodies. And every time the music comes in, it helps it perfectly. Whether it's supposed to be like fever dreamy and nightmarish, or whether it's just something horrific happening on screen, or just like when she's reading the diaries and it's like that goblin-y type sound. The music was perfect throughout. I loved it. And every time it did something like a tracking shot or slow motion or like from below looking up or overhead or running towards the camera or whatever, I thought it looked great. I was profoundly impressed by this, and this is why I do blind buys sometimes. I mean, I knew nothing about this movie other than what was on the back. Also, this other quote that I didn't share earlier: American Genre Film Archive, one of the great treasures of Ozploitation. From what I've seen so far, I would agree with that. Next up, kid, is Suspiria Down Under, in Australia's most criminally underseen genre film. I don't know if I'd say Suspiria Down Under because it doesn't really get supernatural. It might want you to think that to a certain point, or maybe it's just a group of people in one sort of community, in one building, maybe, but I was blown away by this film in every aspect, especially the score, the cinematography, and the style. I loved it. I would say it is criminally underrated and underseen. I mean, you can find other reviews on YouTube, but I've never heard anyone else talk about this. And Tarantino is right, a horror movie unlike any other. I can't really compare it to anything else. There's certain bits that remind me of other things, but yeah, I loved it. I'm just going to keep repeating myself, but I was wildly impressed by this movie. Very effective. Very, very effective. And again, the perfect example of how less is more. Subtlety is the key. Subtlety is scarier. Less is more. This is how you do it. Very effective. I loved it. Next of kin, 1982. Thank you for watching.